Saturn, the most iconic planet in our solar system. It's got those huge rings around it, and it marks the end of our solar system. Everything after Saturn is the outer planets. So we're going to look at Saturn from an astronomical point of view first. Okay, that means scientific. Scientifically, what are some major points about the planet Saturn that we can know about to give us a better idea of the characteristics of that planet? Saturn is the second largest planet in our solar system. It's almost 100 times the mass of Earth. Right there, it's telling us that the gravitational pull of Saturn is really strong. It's known as magnetic moment. All right, if you understand physics, if you understand kinesiology, which is the study of the human body in motion, we use a term called moment. Okay, this is a physics term. Moment often refers to torque, or the power that something has, the force that's exerting on a certain point. Okay, so when they say Saturn's magnetic moment, they're talking about the magnetic strength that the planet Saturn is exerting and the orientation of that strength, meaning its pull in a certain direction, usually towards it. All right? So that magnetic moment, or magnetic strength with direction, that Saturn has is 580 times the Earth's magnetic pull. All right, so it's letting you know the force of Saturn in our solar system that it has. All right. The rings around Saturn is mostly ice particles. Okay, so that lets you know a certain characteristic already. All those big, beautiful rings that we know Saturn for, it's mostly ice particles. Then it's dust, and then rocks. So those rocks are probably, now this is me talking, those rocks are probably asteroids that try to hit Saturn but got hit by the other rocks and stuff that was in Saturn's rings, and then that broke up the asteroid. And when it broke up the asteroid, that became part of the ring system. So every time something from the external, like an asteroid, comes into Saturn trying to hit it, it gets hit by the rings, breaks up, and it becomes part of that defense system. So everything that was usually an invader or attacking ends up being part of the defense. I'm saying that part. Okay. Saturn has approximately 83 moons. About 50 something of the moons are named, but it's got about 83 moons surrounding it in those rings. And the largest moon in Saturn's rings is called Titan. So that's to give you an idea of the size of that moon. Titan, I think, is even larger than Mercury. It is larger than Mercury. Just that moon that Saturn has. Astronomers, right, the scientific study of the heavenly bodies, astronomers believe that Saturn is responsible for kicking Uranus and Neptune into outer space. That was a quote from space.com. All right. Saturn, they believe, is responsible for pushing out Neptune and Uranus from the inner solar system to the outer solar system. So keep that in mind. Saturn marks the end of our solar system in that way. If it marks the end of our inner planets, everything after Saturn is considered outer planets. Those are some astronomical points about the planet Saturn, and keep those things in mind. Mythological points. Now we're going to the mythology of the planet Saturn. Saturn is Zeus's father. Just think about that. So Saturn is very much Big Daddy. Saturn was worried about a prophecy he had heard that his children would overthrow him and take his power, similarly to what he did to his father. So what he did, because he was afraid of this prophecy that his children would take his power, he would swallow his children. And his children lived inside of him. They didn't die because they're immortal, but they lived inside of him trapped, and he would feed off their power. Understand that characteristical mythology, all right, of Saturn. Eventually, the prophecy comes true and his children overthrow him, but that's a deeper story. Saturn is also called Kronos, and Kronos is the titan of time. He controls time. So we get the word chronological from the word Kronos, which is from the deity Kronos, who controls time. That's another important mythology to understand. All right. So Saturn is a titan. All right. Interesting is the titans are a little bit different than the gods and goddesses that you typically know of, like Zeus, Aphrodite, Athena. The titans are a bit more primal in their way that they work. They're not as sophisticated in their thinking as the regular gods and goddesses are. That's another important mythos to understand about Saturn. He's not like Zeus, where there's this sophisticated thinking. It's not that he's not intelligent, it's just that the primal energy of Saturn and the Titans are way higher than the gods and goddesses. That's the mythos, the mythology. Saturn also created, now we're going to get down the line, Saturn also created this being called Precus. Don't quote me on the pronunciation. And Precus, Saturn's child basically, was half goat and half fish. The upper body was goat, the bottom half was fish. And it was an immortal deity also. It lived in the sea. That's where we get the mythology of Capricorn, let's say. Capricorn is upper body is goat, the lower body is fish. Now what's the mythology behind Precus? The mythology behind Precus is when Saturn made Precus, he lived in the ocean and he can control time. Not as much as Kronos, but he can control a certain degree time travel, so he can reverse time a bit. And Precus had children of his own, and those children were half goat, half fish, but for whatever reason, his children would often leave the sea and go on to land and want to stay there too long. When Precus's children would leave the sea and go on to land and stay there too long, they would lose their ability to go back into the sea. They would lose their fish part of themselves. And when they lost their fish part of themselves and became a full goat, because they went on the land, they lost their power to speak, and they lost their power to control time, and they lost all their magic. This is a really important mythological point if you're going to understand Capricorn, Aquarius, or people who have a strong Saturn in their chart. And I'm laying down the foundation of these points so you can understand the characteristics of people who have those energies in their chart.